Welcome. Thank you guys for giving up your evening or a portion thereof to join us to talk about elections. I'm Laura Rainwater. I'm your election commissioner. I've been in office just over a year. Scott Schwab, our Secretary of State, appointed me back March 2nd, I think, of last year, and I got sworn in on March 20th. So, been through 5 elections. You may say 5. Yes, 5, maybe 6 now because of the March 19th election. People think of elections as only being a primary and a general election every year, and that is so not the case. We have many other elections anytime a governing body, such as a city or school district, has a special election, we get to administer it. So we've had quite a few. We had our first mail ballot election on August 29th, since we hadn't had one since 2017. So it was truly baptism by fire for me. I mean, I got to do a recount election because the Hayesville local sales tax question lost by one single vote. So when somebody tells me their vote doesn't matter, I tell them, you tell that to the city of Hayesville officials, because their sales tax, which it wasn't adding sales tax to it was extending their current sales tax of $0.01, and it lost by one vote. So it's going to be, we're having a special election again for them on May 7th to do that again because they think it was a marketing failure. A lot of people thought it was a new tax, and it was not. It was just extending one that was set to sunset in June. How did I get involved in elections? My background, I've been in government relations for the last 15 years. I got my start at the city of Mays, working for the best boss I've ever had, a guy by the name of Richard Lemondon. You may have heard of him. Truly an incredible boss, incredible mentor, incredible leader in our community. And from there, I went to Wichita State and worked for Dr. Bardo for about a year. But I really felt the calling to get back to serving the citizens of Wichita. And so I went to work for City Council, Wichita City Council, and I served District 2 and District 5, worked under Pete Meister and Brian Fry as the community liaison. And did that for 4 years before I was recruited away and became executive director of REAP, which is the Regional Economic Area Partnership. It is a coalition of governing bodies from 10 counties in south central Kansas that work at all levels of government in bringing collaboration on issues that cross over jurisdictional boundaries as well as level of government. And about a year and a half ago, I saw some discord happening between our county government and our state government over elections. I became an election worker back in 2020 when Tabitha was diagnosed with cancer. She's a friend, and she said, "Friends, the best way you can support me is to become an election worker. I can't be out recruiting election workers, and I really need your help." And so I thought, that's one way. I don't have to make food. I can be an election worker. And she immediately plugged me in as a supervising judge of a polling site. I was scared to death, but that's where it hooked me. And elections are exciting. When I say that, people think I'm crazy because you work a 14-hour day and you come home and you're thoroughly exhausted, but you crash on your couch and you turn the TV on to watch the results roll in. And I had an overwhelming sense of pride. I've never served in the military, but this is a service to our country as well. It's a civic service, and it's one that's badly needed. It's a critical infrastructure for our country, because without elections, we wouldn't have the type of government we have. And so that's how I got hooked. I worked every election since then, and I wanted to help make this election office a shining star. So when the opening came up, I thought maybe I can help fix it. I'm a fixer, and I'm enjoying it. It's tough work. People have no idea how complex elections truly are. When and Zach will get into this, I'll introduce Zach and Kathy in a minute. When you think about, just in Sedgwick County, we have 20 municipalities. Every one of those municipalities has a different set of rules. We have over 15 school districts. Every one of those has a different set of rules. And then you talk about your state and your federal offices, and the laws are always changing. It doesn't matter who wins or loses this election. I'm calling this a very hot, spicy election year because we all know it's going to be. Doesn't matter who loses or who wins, the losing party is always gonna cry foul. They're always gonna claim election fraud. It's been going on for years and years and years. Every time there's a presidential election, the losing party declares fraud. I can tell you, I don't know about in other states, but Kansas elections are secure, very secure. We have so many safeguards in place that fraud does not happen here. People's stuff in the ballot boxes, I don't know about. I've never seen it happen. I haven't seen it happen in Kansas. I can only speak to what happens here in Sedgwick County, and we have safe elections here. So with that, I'm gonna stay around. I'll answer any questions you might have, but I'm gonna introduce Zach. Zach is our election training manager. He, along with Kathy, right there, they manage over 700 election workers, and for this next election, the primary and general, we're gonna need probably 800. They manage all those election workers, recruiting of them. That is our toughest challenge, is recruiting enough election workers to staff all of our polling sites. When I got here, we had 82 polling sites. We now have 102 as of this last election. We are adding 3 or 4 more here by the end of this week. So we'll be up over 105 polling sites, and every polling site on average needs 6 workers. And then you factor in all the boards, the audit board, the canvas board, the advanced board. You gotta have people on election night locking up the drop boxes at 7 p.m. It takes a massive amount of people to make elections run efficiently and securely. So help us get the word out. If you haven't been an election worker, please give it consideration. It's a lot of fun. And if you don't want to do a 14-hour day, there are other jobs you can do for us as well. But I'm going to turn it over to Zach. He's got a brief presentation, and then we're here to answer questions.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. Hey, like she said, my name is Zach Dawson, and I get the opportunity to be the election training manager for Sedgwick County. And that is a lot of people, and it is so much fun, and I have had just a blast learning about politics and learning about our government. And I gotta be honest with you, there is a whole lot more that goes into it than I initially thought, and I'm hoping by today you'll learn a little bit something more about our government. But I wanted to make it a little fun. If there's anything, let's try to make it as fun as possible. So, welcome to Sedgwick County Election Office's Trivia Tuesday. I know we've got a full house here tonight, so this is how we're gonna play it. I'm gonna name off a question. There's gonna be A, B, or C. And all you have to do is, whatever letter you think it is, when I say it out, you just raise your hand. And guess what? There's enough of you here. I can see who doesn't raise their hand at all. So, let's have some fun with this. Question number 1. In the United States, what determines the winner of a presidential election? Is it A, the popular vote? Is it B, the Electoral College? Or is it C, campaign ads? All right, good guesses, because it was B, the Electoral College. The Electoral College system, as described in Article 2, Section 1 of the United States Constitution, allows people to vote for electors who then cast their votes for the candidates. Well, what were some of the other ideas that we had when it came to picking a president? At least 4 methods were proposed to elect the president and our vice president. It was election by Congress, election by state governors, election by state legislators, and a direct election by the voters. Now, question number 2, the Electoral College allows each state to have how many electors based on A, 1, or is it B, the number equal to the amount of states, the U.S. senators and representatives, or is it C, the square root of a state's population? It is B, number 2, the number of senators and representatives. The amount of each state's electors is determined by the number of its U.S. senators plus the number of its U.S. representatives. There are currently 538 electors, including the 3 who represent Washington, D.C. The Founding Fathers, they created the Electoral College in part to discourage partisan politics. Their hope was that electors would pick the best men from the population rather than becoming the tools of political parties. I'll leave that there. Question number 3, when do Americans officially find the winner of the presidential election? This is a little bit more of a tricky one. Is it A, the Tuesday following the first Monday in November? Is it B, November 18th? Or is it C, January 6th? Any guesses? A, C, C? All right, well, the answer was C, January 6th. Although they vote on the Tuesday following the first Monday in November, U.S. citizens don't always find out the winner of the election until the President of the Senate reads the electoral votes on January 6th. See, in joint sessions on January 6th, the Congress convenes a joint session to count the electoral votes, and during this session, the results are read aloud and the votes are tallied. The President of the Senate, which is usually the Vice President, announces whether any candidate received a majority of the votes. And certification, and if the majority vote is secured, the election results are certified. However, if there are any objections or disputes, members of Congress can raise them in this time and during that session. The process continues until the count is completed and the results are officially announced. Question number 4. How many of the electoral votes must the candidate receive in order to win? Is it A, 260? Is it B, 270? Or is it C, 280? Any guesses here? A? It is B, 270. Candidates needed to receive 270 of the 538 electoral votes to declare victory. And in the 2000 election, George W. Bush won the election by a single electoral vote. It is usually most states will follow what we call the winner-takes-all system, where the candidate who wins the popular vote in the state receives all of its electoral votes. However, Maine and Nebraska allocate their electoral votes proportionally to the voters. Now, question number 5. What's the name of the election that determines which candidate makes it into the general election? Is it A, our primary election? Is it B, the warm-up election? Or is it C, a practice election? A? Yeah, it's A. Good job. You guys have started to really get these down. Now, there it is. It just got really excited. Answer A, it's a primary election. In a primary election, voters select who will go into the general election to represent their respective political parties. Now, we have something called a closed primary that only allows voters affiliated with a given party to vote for their chosen candidate within that party. Now, there are open primaries which allow voters to choose either party regardless of their affiliation. Now, this last election that we had was our primary election, and it was a closed primary because Republicans and Democrats, when you guys came in to vote on this election, you realized that you were only allowed to vote for the Republicans or the Democrats. What was interesting about this election is that people who were unaffiliated, though, they could come into the polling sites this last election and affiliate on the spot, declaring that they are a Republican or a Democrat, and then receive the appropriate ballot. So, let's go into the introductions. Thank you guys so much for playing my game. I hope you guys had as much fun as I had. Real riveting stuff. Why is the election so important? Well, we're going to go through that and why what we do is important for Sedgwick County and how you actually vote. Then we'll talk about some of the processes here at the election office. How does an election happen? Here into a peek about what we do and how we manage things at our offices and making sure we do all the things we need to do to make the elections possible, secure, and trustworthy. What are some common myths and conspiracies about the elections? I like throwing some fun facts, so we'll have a fun fact section, things most people don't know about elections, and then some things you can look forward to here at Sedgwick County. How can we get involved as poll workers will be the final slide, and I'll be talking about how you get signed up, why getting involved is so important, and some next steps after you're done listening to me speak. So starting off, the importance of an election. Participating in elections is one of the key freedoms of American life. Many people in countries around the world do not have the same privileges and freedoms that we do, or nor did many Americans in centuries past. No matter what you believe or who you support, it is important to exercise your right. And your vote may be the exact vote to change the tide. Now, I put some examples up here. We've got the Bush v. Gore election, because in 2000, George Bush won Florida by only 537 votes. That is 0.009% of Florida's population. And then finally, like what Laura talked about just a second ago, the Hayesville sales tax. The most recent election about the Hayesville sales tax was decided by one vote. 73 voted no, and 472 voted yes. Your vote matters. Well, how do elections work in Kansas? Well, in Kansas, there are 105 counties. In 101 of those counties, the county clerk is the election official. In the 4 largest counties, the election commissioners are appointed by the Secretary of State. Both clerks and election commissioners serve 4-year terms. How do people vote? Well, in our 2023 general election, we had a total of 79,932 ballots casted. 21% of them came by advance by mail. They requested it, they got a letter from us with their ballot, they filled it out, and they sent it back, or they dropped it off on election day. Then 19.7%, almost 20% are early voting. We have early voting sites all over Sedgwick County where you get to show up before election day and cast your vote. And the best part about early voting sites is it doesn't matter which one you go to like it would on election day. You can go to any of the early voting sites and cast your vote. And then finally, almost 57% of our population comes in on election day. Election day is a big day for us. It's packed early mornings, but it is exciting like Laura mentioned. And then 1.5% vote provisionally. Provisionally just means that there's a little bit of an information discrepancy, and we need to double check it and make sure that that vote is fully correct before we count it or discount it. And the way to do that is having a board of canvassers. I'll talk a little bit more about our canvass, but it's just a board of people that we have elected to come up and go through all of our provisional ballots to make sure that they are accurate, we're not double voting, or there's any discrepancies. Now, there's some voting options. I talked a little bit about our advance by mail ballots, and those ballots are mailed beginning 20 days prior to each election to all registered voters who have completed an advance by mail ballot request application. Military and overseas voters can receive ballots electronically 45 days prior to the election. And then we have 14 secure drop boxes. Our drop boxes are secure, and we have cameras on every single one of them to make sure that everything is as safe and accurate as possible. We take this stuff seriously because we want to make sure that our system and our voters have the utmost trust in us at Sedgwick County election offices. Early voting, any registered voter in Sedgwick County can vote at any advanced voting center. Like I just mentioned, the Sedgwick County election office is open for voting during the regular business hours beginning the 15th day before the election and ending at 12 p.m. the day before the election. 19 advanced vote centers are open across the Sedgwick County, and they are open Tuesday to Saturday prior to the election day. Now, election days, voters must vote at their assigned polling site. We have 102 polling places, now I think 105 as of recently, so I need to update my slides, and they are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on election day. And we plan on adding 20 new sites by the end of 2024. It's a lot more people. Now, voting within Sedgwick County, we've got 116 things we vote on in the municipality systems that we have. That's our mayors, our city council, our drainage districts, school districts, and school board members. We have 78 townships that we are voting on, which is our clerks, our treasurers, our trustees. And then our precincts committee, we have 2 precincts committee positions per major party with 379 precincts with 1 or more voters in Sedgwick County. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of places to vote for. So in total districts of office, we conduct elections for, that's 1,813. Now, some of those are shared with some other counties, but that's still a lot of people. Now, these are some of our major types of elections that we have. We've got city elections, school elections, partisan primary elections, general elections, special elections, bond elections, mail ballot elections, recall elections, and presidential preference primary elections. If you haven't figured it out, I'm going to say the word election a lot in this speaking piece. But we have a lot of it. Now, our presidential preference primary is the election we just did. Now, what are some of the duties that we at the election office actually do on a day-to-day basis? Well, we designated part of the nation's critical infrastructure. Voting is a critical part of our democracy. So what we do is super important, and we need to make sure that we bring excellence at every step of that. So we maintain voter registration databases, including federally mandated its maintenance. So we are keeping all of our information up to date. We help candidates file for office. We procure polling locations. We hire and train election board workers, which is what I do. We program the ballots and electronic voting equipment. We pack and deliver all needed supplies to the polling sites. We conduct elections and we conduct post-election audits and canvasses. The current voter registration in Sedgwick County is 333,412 total registered voters. We have 132,327 Republicans, 85,244 Democrats, almost 5,000 Libertarians, 3 people from the brand new No Labels Party, and 110,000 unaffiliated voters, which that actually kind of caught me off guard. I did not realize how many unaffiliated voters we had here in Sedgwick County. Very interesting stuff. Now, like I said, I like to throw some fun facts in there. So now let's take a breather. That was a lot of information. Let's talk about some more fun facts. In 1997, Texas passed a law that allowed American astronauts in space to electronically cast their ballots in federal elections. In the same year, David Wolf cast the first ever space vote while aboard the Russian space station Mir. In the 1800 presidential election between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr resulted in a tie in the Electoral College, leading to the House of Representatives to decide the outcome in Jefferson's favor. In 16 U.S. states, it is illegal to take a photo of your ballot. Doing so could result in a fine and even jail time. And until 2007, the Ohio Constitution prohibited idiots from voting. The Constitution states that no idiot or insane person shall be entitled to the privileges of an elector. In some countries, such as India, Greece, Ukraine, and Colombia, they all have a none of the above option on their election ballots. In the United States, only Nevada offers a none of these candidates option. Now, approximately 64% of the United States voting population is registered to vote. Compare that to the 91% in Canada and the United Kingdoms, the 96% in Sweden, or the nearly 99% in Japan. Now, after we've gone through some of these more fun facts, let's talk about some of the myths, some common things you hear about elections. You're only allowed to vote on election day. Well, within our early voting centers and our ability to use absentee and mail-in ballots, voting has never been easier. Once you're registered to vote, you don't have to register again. Well, you must re-register if you ever move, change your name, switch political parties, or commit a felony. Now, how common is voter fraud? Well, voter fraud is rare. From the Brennan Center of Justice, a report by Justin Levitt came out and found that most reported cases of voter fraud were traceable to other sources, clerical errors, or bad data practices. And can people submit extra ballots, or can the dead vote? Well, several election security measures that we have protect against the possibility for eligible voters casting more than one ballot of anyone voting in the name of a dead person. That's kind of where our provisional votes come in, our canvas board comes in, is that if something is wrong or the information doesn't seem right, that's what a provisional vote is we do not know why this information is not correct. We do not know why there's some information missing. Maybe someone had an advanced by mail ballot, but they decided to go up into the election office and go vote normally. Well, we double check and make sure that they didn't double vote with their mail-in ballot and their election day ballot. We take it very seriously to make sure that we check our information and everyone is up to date, because if they can vote, then that means we've screened it and it looks good. So, finally, why should you be a part? Well, I think if you want to get to know something, you should really be a part of it and work into the system. There are so many reasons as why you should take a next step. Poll workers, they make the election possible. We do a lot here at the Sedgwick County Election Office, but we could not run our polling sites. There's not enough of us to run all of those sites. And without poll workers, it would be impossible. We need poll workers, especially with just how many more polling sites we're adding. What people do as poll workers matter, and they contribute directly to our election experience. It would make the U.S. democracy obsolete. Poll workers are essential, and if you are interested in signing up, what we would do would be so essential. Volunteering as a poll worker allows you to peer into the inner workings of democracy. How votes are tallied, who actually shows up to vote, how power is secured. You might gain a deeper appreciation of this process. While it is a lot, it's interesting. The more you learn about it, the more questions you have, and the more you want to find out about it. Like Laura said, it is addicting. It's so much fun to get to know about it. By becoming a poll worker, you'll help ensure the community has that personnel it needs to keep polling sites open. Now, I've heard countless stories of our poll workers who say they work at their home polling site and they see their friends and their family come in to vote. That's a cool experience. You get to help contribute to your person, your families, your communities' interactions with our election officers. And last and finally not least, you get paid to do it. That's a nice bonus too. So being a poll worker is so essential. And when we look ahead, we've got a lot of things in our future where we're gonna need poll workers. We have a May 7th special election questions where we're gonna be going to cover different areas. And August 6th, we have our primary election. And November 5th, we have our general election. As I mentioned earlier, we are adding new sites. We plan on having 20 new election day sites by the end of 2024. And we're gonna add 3 more early voting centers. With all of that, we're also planning to relocate to a brand new building in 2025. That being said, we're gonna be busy and we need you to help be a part of it. Because what you would do would contribute and it matters so much. The poll workers, you guys are crucial to our democracy. You ensure that we have an efficient voting process. You know, high-performing poll workers contribute greatly in voter confidence. Research by MIT's Charles Stewart shows that 96% of our voters have a positive experience with poll workers. It leads to higher levels of voter confidence. Poll workers are not just a necessity, you are also vital for building trust in our election system. You bring the energy, you bring the experiences. When you sign up to be a poll worker, you contribute directly to our process. Now, how do you sign up? Well, I put 2 really convenient links up here. First one is if you want to register to vote, if you haven't been signed up, if you need to re-register, it's the red QR code right here at the top. But I also have a sheet of paper over there that you can fill out before you go, hand it to us, and we will process you then. But if you're interested in being a poll worker, yet again, I've got this blue QR code right here. You can scan it, it'll lead you online. You submit an application, but then also I have paper ones in the back if the pencil and pen is more your thing. I will take just 1 second. I see our friend over there is taking a picture of it. Perfect. Now finally, that is our slides. Now this is the time for just questions and answers. So if you have a question, raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone over to you. Perfect.
So how was the preferential primary decided on? Because that was the first time in 30 years.
You got this.
I got this. So why did we have a presidential preference primary? I get asked that question a lot. My first canned response is because the Kansas legislature told us to. We have not had one since 1992. I think they wanted, we elect precinct committee people to represent our precinct at caucus, at the state caucus. They are the ones that decide which candidate they're going to endorse at the national convention. Well, because I think our Kansas, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, and I'm not, I think they wanted to give voters more of a voice and let every voter give them the opportunity to vote on their preference for presidential candidates. You would be amazed at some of the emails we got in our voter information. One accused us of fraud because there were candidates on the ballot that had already dropped out of the race. Well, they dropped out after the filing deadline. The filing deadline is also the drop deadline. DeSantis dropped out. He filed on the filing deadline and he paid the $10,000 to the state. The very next day he drops out. Guess what? He's still on the ballot. So that's my best answer. The Kansas legislature told us to run this election and we just do what we're told. So it was the poorest turnout election, I will say. It was 6.4%. And everybody that came in, I think, feels the same way I do. You should vote in every election you're eligible to vote in. Voting is we should be thankful we live in a country that allows citizens the voice to vote. And I vote in every election, whether I think it matters or not. It's my privilege. It's a right, it's also a privilege. So, any other questions? So you're all gonna be election workers, right? I'll sign you up.
No, I was just curious. I mean, watching your presentation really is insightful, and it's really surprising how many locations, how many people, just the logistical nature of the whole thing. A lot of moving pieces have to come into place to work pretty succinctly. Is there ever, or in the future, would there ever be a possibility of just voting from your phone electronically? Instead of having all these locations and everything, you could consolidate it down to maybe a smaller operation, but I didn't know what the realistic feasibility of something like that was, even into the next 10 years or something.
You can bank from your phone. And, you know, I'm not a tech guru at all. It's amazing what you can do with technology now. But holy cow, we already get accused of our vote marking devices, and that's all they are, of being fraudulent. I can't imagine how that would, but yet you bank from your phone, and it's secure.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, some of your most secure, important things that you do on a daily basis, you can do right in the app.
Absolutely, that's my point. If you can rely on your phone to access your bank account, you can do your taxes, yeah, so. Oh, I know, there are, you're absolutely correct. So I don't know the answer to that question, if that technology is coming, that's way above my pay grade and knowledge.
So would that be a state decision or
I think the technology would have to be there first from a federal level, or state, I don't know of any states that allow voting by phone. I know Washington State is all paper ballot. All of our ballots are paper ballots. When we do our post-election audit, we don't use ballot images, they're all paper ballots. When you go and you vote on an express vote machine, that is not a tabulator. It's just an electronic marking device where you're marking your vote electronically and then printing out your ballot. So you still have a paper ballot. That is a very big misconception that people have. They think that the express vote is a tabulator, and it's not tabulating a vote at all. There's no media stick in it. There's nothing keeping record of how you marked your ballot in the express vote. It is only there to make a ballot, an electronic ballot that it prints out. You can see your choices on that electronic ballot, and then you walk it over to the DS200 where the media stick is, that is not connected to the internet. It goes to the media stick, and that's your vote tabulator. Then at the end of the night, we pull that media stick, a runner takes it back to the election office in a secured bag that has a seal so that we can see that it hasn't been tampered with. And it comes to Election Central, we take that media stick and plug it into a laptop that is on its own server that is not connected to the internet in any way. We have there's 5 laptops in Election Central. They all have their own server and no other outside source. So, anyway, just a little bit of, you guys are welcome. I welcome the public to come to audit, those are all public meetings, to come to the public test of equipment where we test our equipment, but we have a pre-test before the election of the equipment, and then we have a post-test. And all of those dates for every election are on our website, and they're all open to the public. Like the canvas, if you want to come to the canvas, that's open to the public.
Sure, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, so with the preferential, I really thought I met the deadline for requesting my mail-in ballot, some of you, we vote and everything. And I think I might have put the wrong date of the election, because then I got a postcard saying, oh, you missed it. And I said, that's so weird. So I have to have the right date.
Okay, the presidential preference primary has some special rules. And to request a mail ballot, usually you can request a mail ballot, I believe it's 7 days before an election. For the presidential preference primary, and only the presidential preference primary, the deadline is 30 days.
Oh, yeah, I totally
Yeah.
And people were advertising, oh, don't forget.
People were so mad.
I was like, I don't understand, I sent it in time. but-
The other big difference, and I preached it to every media outlet and every interview I did, the biggest change on mail ballots for that election only, we had to have them in our physical possession by 7 PM on election night. So if you put it in the mailbox on election day, thinking that your postmark was gonna allow your ballot to count as long as we got it within 3 days, that it would count, no. There was no 3-day grace period with this last election. The Kansas legislature again set those rules. So it was a totally different election, not like your typical primary in general. So did you have other questions? Did you?
My question is about the precincts. Because the poll pads are no longer these actual physical books, they are tablets that are connected, it seems, to your server. Why do we still require people to go to specific precincts to vote? I realize they can do provisional, but to cast a regular ballot is always gonna be preferred. So can you talk a little bit about that?
So Secretary Schwab, I think the Kansas legislature, and this is before my time, instituted a Vote Anywhere Act where we could vote anywhere. Problem is, we don't have the technology. We would have to have a poll print where we could print every ballot style at all of our polling locations. Sedgwick County has 29 poll prints. So that's why we use them for early voting only. It would also, if we had 100, we're gonna have 106 polling sites by the end of this week. If we had 106 poll prints to print a ballot for every single precinct, they're very expensive. I would have to submit a plan to the Secretary of State before he would approve the Vote Anywhere access in Sedgwick County. Very good question, but right now we just don't have the capabilities because we don't have the capabilities to print a ballot style for every single precinct at every polling site. Does that make sense? Okay.
Simple question. Where do you store all of the voting equipment, and what budget does it come out of? County, I mean, where is that?
That's a very good question. We have a warehouse, a highly secure warehouse. It's in the sheriff evidence, that's how secure it is. When we move, Zach kind of touched on it, the election office is going to be relocating. I don't know if you guys have heard that news. They bought a building, it's Walton's out, they do barbecue stuff, out in Comatera Office Park. Walton's is expanding and they've outgrown their space. Their building is beautiful and perfect size we need to cohabitate with our election equipment. Right now, we do not. It is highly secure. I mean, I have no doubt. But we need to be, the administrative offices need to be cohabitating with our election equipment. And it would make it, the efficiencies would be so much greater if we had that. So this space will incorporate all of that under one roof. Beautiful facility, very minor, so I mean, we're gonna have to move some interior walls to reconfigure the office space, but it is an ideal building. We looked for over 7 years for a new election office. Yes, we really wanted to be located in the core of Wichita, which is downtown. The core of Wichita is not the core of Sedgwick County. The core of Sedgwick County is Rolling Hills Country Club out on North Maple, or West Maple. So we looked all over. This site and this location, when we walked into it, it's just beautiful, and it was the best location. I don't want to say it's the best location. It's easy access because it's right off of K96 and Rock Road. Yes, the best location would be in the core of Wichita, the public's perception of the middle of Sedgwick County. But because we can't, there's nothing down here, and we've looked at every possibility, that this is a great, I want to say it's a first choice, because it really is a first choice, because we haven't found anything else. And it's an amazing choice, and I thank our county commissioners they had to up the budget, because when they allocated $3 million into the CIP back in 2017, what has real estate prices done in the last 3 years alone? So they added some to it. I think the total cost with the renos and everything is like 6 million. So, and that, what was your second part? You asked about budget. Taxpayer dollars. Elections are not a revenue source. We cost county money every year, but it has to be funded. It truly is the foundation of our country. They have to cover the cost of elections. That is dictated by the state. I know in some states, the state covers the cost of elections, but here, counties have to cover the cost of their elections. Now, in the presidential preference primary, that's a different story. We get to recoup, the state is paying for the cost of the presidential preference primary that we just had. So,
I have one last one.
sure.
So I'm a precinct committee person, and I just found out my number changed.
Are you at Derby?
No, Wichita. So I went from 212, and then I was like, oh, I'm 212, and now I'm 137. So nobody would know that, maybe, until the day when they're voting. But it's hard to find that information. Like, now I can go find it online, but I was very surprised when my number was changed.
So because of redistricting, because of the census, there was a lot, I know in East Wichita, the boundaries changed for Wichita Council Districts 1 and 2, and so the precincts got new numbers. You are now in Council District 1, which is Brandon Johnson, instead of Beth Tuttle's, which is Council District 2. So all of Council District 2, the precincts start with a 2, that's how we number them. If you're in Council District 1, your precinct starts with a 1. It will be active, they've all been changed in Elvis, our voter, so you are, if you have already filed, you would have filed in your new precinct number. The reason I asked about Derby, we just did a split down in Derby, we did DB 42 or 24, 42. Huge precinct voter numbers, and we needed to add a polling site down there because their polling sites are bursting at the seam in Derby because of the growth. And so we split DB 42 in half, and along Chet's, I don't know if anybody's from Derby here, but Chet Smith Boulevard is a east-west street, so we just used it as the dividing point. So half of it remains DB 42, and then it just happens to be DB 440 is Commissioner Howell and his wife, Representative Leah Howells. They're the committee people for that precinct, DB 42. Well, now they're in 440, so it created a new precinct. Has not been changed on GIS yet, because it just is being published in the paper tomorrow. That's how fresh it is. But it was more for the efficiency of elections and running the elections. I don't want anybody to wait 2 hours on election day come November. That's a nightmare to me. And it's a nightmare as a former supervising judge. I can remember back to the 2020 election, and I don't think anybody at my polling site waited more than 15 minutes. But I had one of the smaller polling sites. Some of the big polling sites had over 7,000 registered voters. That's insane. And so this is going to help a lot. Yeah, it's a logistical nightmare managing over 100 polling sites and recruiting that many election workers. It's, as Kathy and Zach can attest, everybody in the office can attest. That's our biggest challenge, is recruiting enough election workers and managing all of them, and people calling out the day before, I'm not gonna be able to work tomorrow. You know, what do you do? I had two supervising judges quit 2 days before this last election, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
I mean, come on, people. Yeah, it's a challenge that will always be our challenge. But it's worth it. I wish more people would get involved in work elections. I think they would find it's fun too. People are afraid. You know, I've had some people in some of our training classes this last talk about their safety because they're worried about people being crazy because of what happened in 2020. I will tell you, I have talked to Sheriff Easter. He is going to work with our new police chief, and he worked with our former police chief back in 2020. They have divided the county into 6 out of the pie, and they will have teams of 2 officers, one from the city and one from the county, that will respond or set aside to respond to polling sites if there are any incidences. They were used 0 times in 2020. There were no calls for assistance. So, but it's a good safety net to have. So, help us by recruiting. Tell your friends. I don't have to beg, but I do. You know, I talk to everybody I can about being a poll worker.
Not the big, really. Please.
Yeah, yeah, truly. That is the biggest challenge when I mean, and it's not just Sedgwick County, everywhere, that's their biggest challenge is recruiting people to work elections, because it is a long day. And it's not you don't do it for the money. Yeah, there's money involved, you are paid, but $8.50 an hour, that's what you're paid as an election worker. Supervising judges get $11, but most election workers make $8.50 an hour. No taxes are withheld on it though. It's tax free.
That's great.
Yeah, if you make under $600, it's tax free.
Hey, there we go.
What other questions? I could talk about this all night. Yes?
Can you talk more about your move down to, up to the new location? Does that mean that all of the early election polling sites or early voting sites will move up that way? Will all the runners have to go up that way? Like, how is that gonna work logistically?
Early voting sites will not move. Now, the only thing that will change, and I have promised commissioners and I promised the public. So early voting at the election office always opens up 2 weeks before in downtown Wichita. We are going to find a location in downtown Wichita that's centrally located, maybe even the library, to be an early voting site. Because people are used to voting at the election office, even though parking really is bad around the election office. I know when I worked at City Hall, we always walked across the street and voted early. So we will open up an early voting site 2 weeks early downtown once we get moved. I'm not promising this, but I'd also like to open up one out west 2 weeks early. So we would have 3 polling sites open for the entire 2 weeks. The other satellite locations would then still open up 3 to 5 days ahead of the election, just like they do now. But at least have 3 sites open the entire 2 weeks. My goal is to make voting as easy and accessible to everybody. You know, I've seen reports that the more polling sites, the closer people vote to their home, that they don't have to travel. You know, I split a precinct up in Valley Center because there were people that lived a mile outside of Valley Center, but they had to drive all the way to Mays to vote. I thought, that's not convenient. So we changed the precinct alignment up in Valley Center before this last election. I want it to be easy to vote. It should be easy to vote. Now, some of the voting responsibility lies with the voter too. And you gotta remember, you only do it 2 days a year at the most, maybe 3 if you've got a special election. But some of the voting responsibility has to lie with the voter too, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible. But that was a very good question. Thank you.
I got another one, but now I have to remember it. Hold on. I forgot it.
Okay, ask me later to think of it, or email me. Anything else?
Oh, no, I remember.
Just fill it out and I'll repeat
I
it.
can repeat it. Talk about the changing precincts numbers. I think because I've worked at a polling site now for several years and I've moved around and everybody else that has come to that polling site has said that, oh, they changed it on me again. And I know that there's ways to look it up as she said earlier, but can you talk about what goes into the decision to change those polling sites?
Yes, so we did. So we added, this last election, we added 20 polling sites and that led to a lot of confusion. Every single voter, it affected 73,000 voters just for this last election, adding those 20 polling sites, moving people around to make it more convenient for them to vote. We sent new voter ID cards and boldly in bright red letters, you have a new polling site. people still don't read their mail. I can't make them read the mail. You can also go to our website or the Secretary of State's website and view your sample ballot and find your polling location. Those are kept up to date. We can only do so much. I know we don't like to change polling places. We had it some, around WSU, Marcus Welcome Center was under construction, so we moved people to Coke Arena. Coke Arena, I love Coke Arena, but it's not the most convenient because of all the events that take place at Coke Arena. So again, I had to move them. We got Atwater Community Center, and I moved them over to Atwater Community Center. So this is the third election in a row they had to move. I get it, they're disgruntled over that. I can't blame them, but Atwater is gonna be a permanent site. Very easy to work with, beautiful room, beautiful space, easily accessible. So those are the decisions. We don't like to have to move them, and sometimes polling sites notify us and say, hey, we can no longer accommodate you. You know, we have that happen too, and then we are on the hunt for new polling sites. So, if you get a piece of election mail, I know there's a lot of candidate mail, but if you get something that says from the election office, please open it. You know, voter ID cards are a postcard, but you should always open your stuff from the election office. So. Anything else? Well, I thank you, Zach. You did a great job. If you're interested in being an election worker, like I said, help recruit if you haven't done it. And if 14 hours is too long, we have other options. You know, we need people, we need teams of bipartisan teams of two to go out on election night and lock the drop boxes. You just have to be at the drop box at 7 p.m. and turn a key so that no more ballots can be put in the drop box after 7. That literally takes 2 hours out of your Tuesday evening. Then we have boards. We have the audit board, the canvas board. Those are more than 2 hours, but less than 8. So I thank you guys for coming tonight. I thank the library for doing this. I'm happy to come talk elections anytime.